Welcome back, everyone. This will be my new Marvel Fantastic Four video. Chris Evans was talking about coming back as a version of Johnny Storm. Sam Raimi has also been talking on the Doctor Strange 2 commentary about their John Krasinski Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. And Marvel just announced a really big Comic-Con panel that they're having, like they used to have, like they're doing the same thing that they used to do. They kind of sat the last couple years out. So we'll get a bunch more footage and confirmations about what's going on during Marvel Phase 4 during the panel.
Look at these two troublemakers.
Hey, Johnny, how are you?
Wicked car, is that new?
Yeah, it's a Sonata. Let me pack it.
Oh, you're not fitting your car in there.
If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. Of course, I'll do videos for all this stuff as it comes. And real quick shout out to my friends at NordVPN who asked to sponsor this video. Normally on my Marvel episode videos, I do giveaways for Disney Plus memberships, but some of you might live in countries where Disney Plus isn't available yet and you have to wait forever to get new Marvel Phase 4 movies on streaming. But with a VPN, you can actually change the location you access content online from. Even if you live outside the United States, you can use a service like NordVPN to sign up for the US or the UK version of Disney+. You can also use a VPN to stop anyone from snooping on your browsing history, which is a really useful way to keep everybody from finding out how many times you rewatched Wanda going after the 838 Universe Illuminati.
What mouth?
RIP to the 838 universe versions of all these characters. We'll have to wait for other versions to come from other universes in future movies. I'll add a link in the description below, or you can go directly to nordvpn.com/emergencyawesome, so be sure to check it out. They have a 30-day refund policy just in case you decide that it's not for you. But the big news you probably heard is that Chris Evans was talking about coming back as different versions of his characters, talking about coming back as Captain America from the MCU, like the Captain America that we remember, but also coming back as his version of Johnny Storm from the Fox Marvel Fantastic Four movies, or the classic Fantastic Four movies, however you want to think about them. I know there's some questions about which universes they come from, but I will explain that during the video because Fox had their own plans to do a big Civil War type of event with X-Men versus Fantastic Four, kind of confirming that the classic Chris Evans Fantastic Four movies were happening in that classic X-Men movie universe. But this is the clip of him talking about coming back as Johnny Storm.
A lot of rumors that you could come back in the multiverse as another Marvel character you played, Johnny Storm.
God,
did they ever come to you?
Would
that have intrigued you?
But I really love that character. But I think, aren't they doing something now with? Yeah, look, I would love it. I would love it. That would actually be an easier sell to me than coming back as Cap. You know what I mean? Cap is so precious to me, and I almost don't want to disrupt what a beautiful experience that was. But Johnny Storm, I feel like he didn't really get his day. That was before Marvel really found its footing. So, I loved that role, and
So obviously he's just trading on the idea that Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness kind of blew everything wide open. They have the 838 Universe Illuminati with all the different amalgam versions of characters with Easter eggs for all kinds of different versions all wrapped into one. Really good example of that is that Patrick Stewart's Professor X isn't meant to be the classic version of Professor X from those X-Men movies. His version is meant to be a reference to many different versions of Professor X, most notably to X-Men the Animated Series. Like they literally play the X-Men the Animated Series theme song when he comes in that yellow floaty chair, which was featured during that series. Fun side note too, Marvel is actually doing a brand new season of X-Men the Animated Series. They're calling it X-Men 97 because it's meant to be a continuation of the previous series. And supposedly it's going to be connected to what's happening during Marvel Phase 4. That's a bit of a curveball that they're throwing us, but it could be really cool. Like in the way that What If does a lot of things that we're seeing during Marvel Phase 4, referencing a lot of similar things, even though all the versions of characters we see during What If are meant to be different characters that we saw in Doctor Strange 2. Like Sinister Strange wasn't literally meant to be the version of Supreme Strange that we saw during What If. He's meant to be a completely different version, but they were kind of riffing on what they did during What If with the character. And the whole reason why Chris Evans was talking about coming back as Johnny Storm is because he was saying it'd be way easier for him to do that, like just a way easier sell for him to sign on for something like that than it would be for him to come back as his version of MCU Captain America. And it was in response to the longtime fan theory that Marvel should do a series or a movie based on Captain America's story of him returning the Infinity Stones. Like, what is that story of his last mission? Ever since Avengers Endgame, he's been saying similar things like that. Like, we did such a good job with that character, the way we ended that he doesn't want to completely trample on that. So whatever script he came back for new Captain America stuff, it would have to be a perfect script. It's kind of the same situation with Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man character. Like, he's not quite as quick to come back as the original version of Iron Man because there are all kinds of twists to explain how you can bring him back. but he'd be much more willing to come back in some sort of alternate version of the character that's completely different, like the version of Tony Stark who became Doctor Strange in a future timeline. There was a really cool deleted scene during Avengers Infinity War where they did a twist like that, where he kind of briefly became a version of Doctor Strange wearing the Cloak of Levitation, and Doctor Strange became a version of Iron Man, and when he was wearing Iron Man's armor, they called him the Iron Mage. I'd hoped that they would pay that off during Doctor Strange 2 because that seemed like the place to do something like that, but I think because they swerved on a lot of their Iron Man plans, they just wanted to have loose references to him. I've already done a bunch of videos about all the Iron Man Easter eggs, so they reference him a lot, but you don't actually see him on screen. And when they decided to do it that way, it just made less sense to include literal Iron Man Easter eggs like having a version of Doctor Strange wearing Iron Man's armor. Some of the other really cool deleted storylines and subplots that we learned about in the pre-Disney buyout days, like when Fox still owned all these characters, is that originally, like I said, they had planned to do their own version of a Captain America Civil War type movie with X-Men vs. Fantastic Four, and that was going to be after First Class had come out. The people who wrote X-Men First Class said that they had been tasked in writing their version of an X-Men vs. Fantastic Four movie, and it got pretty far along before they swerved on it and decided to do X-Men Apocalypse and all those future other X-Men movies that were just completely by themselves. Like they did Days of Future Past, they brought back the classic X-Men cast and did a completely different thing with those characters, and then eventually you have the Disney buyout where things really do change. It sounds like the plot of their movie would have played out in a relatively similar way, where someone from the Fantastic Four like Johnny Storm, Human Torch, does something crazy, and that sort of sets off this big conflict between them and the X-Men. But because they confirmed that the classic X-Men movies take place during the same timeline as the X-Men First Class movies, they did that during Days of Future Past, just kind of bringing both of those timelines together. Because they'd also planned to do this Fantastic Four versus X-Men movie, that also kind of confirms that the classic Fantastic Four movies also took place on this same Earth where the classic X-Men movies took place. And for those of you asking about where Deadpool was during that X-Men vs. Fantastic Four movie, I believe that this was happening before the first Deadpool movie had blown up at Fox, so behind the scenes for them, he wasn't that big of a character yet. But the other really cool detail is that the Fantastic Four were actually supposed to show up during Deadpool 2 before they decided to swerve on that and do all the stuff with the X-Force plot. This is some actual concept art of the characters and what they would have looked like during the movie. Now post-buyout, when Marvel owns all those characters again, they can do whatever they want, and Chris Evans can say yes to whatever he wants to. But all this Chris Evans coming back as a version of Johnny Storm, obviously that wouldn't happen in the brand new Marvel Fantastic Four movie they're doing, the new Solo movie. There's been a lot of talk about them just continuing with John Krasinski's Reed Richards, like even though it was meant to be the 838 universe version of the character, and they killed him off during the movie, a lot of people think that that might have just been a test run that Kevin Feige and Sam Raimi were doing, just to see how the audience felt about seeing Fantastic Four inside the MCU canonized. Because even though this is taking place in an alternate universe, if you look at the Fantastic Four logo on John Krasinski's chest, it's the same logo that Marvel's been using in all their teaser trailers for the brand new Fantastic Four movie. And it just feels like if they had never planned to bring John Krasinski back, like if it was only meant to be a one-off version, then they would have just changed the look of the Fantastic Four logo so that it looked completely different from the logo they're going to be using in the upcoming brand new movie.
Funny that Kevin cast John because the fans had a dream of who the perfect Reed Richards would be. And because it's an alternate universe, I think Kevin said, let's make that dream come true.
I think what's really going on behind the scenes is that Marvel's just trying to have its cake and eat it too. Like they're not trying to pin themselves into a corner and saying it has to be John Krasinski, but I think they're just trying to see how everybody feels about it. So that when they do the Fantastic Four movie, they can bring in a totally different actor if they want to, or if it doesn't work out, and just say, oh, like the John Krasinski thing, that was just meant to be a one-off thing. We always planned it that way, even though that's probably not the case. That is a really clever way for Marvel to try out actors. Like, okay, we're going to do a bunch of multiverse characters here, these versions, with actors that we think might be good as these characters, and we'll kill them off, and if fans really love them, then we'll bring them back as other versions of these characters from different universes. But if it wasn't clear, I do think when Marvel does their Fantastic Four movie, their Fantastic Four will come from an alternate universe, and it'll sort of play in with the whole idea of the Incursions, Secret Wars, and the multiverse in general.
Stephen, your arrival here confuses and destabilizes reality. The larger the footprint you leave behind, the greater the risk of an incursion. From our experience, the greatest danger to the multiverse, it turns out, is Doctor Strange. An incursion occurs when the boundary between two universes erodes and they collide.
I just did a brand new Doctor Doom Easter eggs and deleted scene video from Doctor Strange 2, and I talk about how their Fantastic Four is connected to what's happening during Secret Wars and all the time runs out stuff, the incursions that they're doing. Everyone click here for that, and click here for my brand new Thor Love and Thunder trailer video and Easter eggs. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.